Greetings everybody, Curtis here from PhotoBrake. I am here to share a subject that really is exciting to me, and that is photographing the night sky, in particular the Milky Way. First of all, I'd like to ask a question. Who out there really enjoys getting up early every day? Well, anybody who knows me knows it's not me. I am a night owl, and I think fortunately for me, I've found something photographically that really feeds that, is I have no problem staying up late at night. Now, when you're going to shoot the Milky Way, you have to have a couple things in mind. One is where you live. Like the realtors like to say, location, location, location. Because if you live anywhere in the city, you're going to have a really tough time photographing the Milky Way. You might be able to see it, but the sky is just going to be polluted, and we call that light pollution. So I find myself, even though I live in the East Coast of North Carolina, I'm going out to the Outer Banks a lot if I want to chase the night sky and shoot the Milky Way there. So there is a resource that helps you find some good spots depending on where you live. It's called darksightfinder.com. I will leave the information below so you can look that up. It's a really good site. If you look at the map, you will see, good gracious, the eastern half of the United States is just filled with light pollution, and that's just because there's so many people there, there's so many cities, and we just turn all our lights up to the sky, unfortunately, to light everything up. You can see the western part of the country is got a lot more darker skies. I find myself traveling further and further away if I'm really gonna try to shoot the Milky Way or star trails. One place I really fell in love with was Big Bend, Texas. If you ever have a chance to go there, I highly recommend it. Even if you're not into night photography, they've just got the beautiful landscape out there, and again, I highly recommend it. Another consideration in shooting the Milky Way is the seasons. The Milky Way actually has a season, and that runs on the, at least northern hemisphere, March through September. Those are the prime times when at night you really see the Milky Way and it's all its glory. I will say though, this photograph here I took in New Mexico in December, and I thought it was worth getting up for and taking a photo. Even though you don't see the galactic center, I still think it was worthy of doing that. Okay, so aside from the season of the Milky Way, you've got some other considerations, and that is the weather. Obviously, you can't go out at night and shoot if it's cloudy, if it's raining. As a lot of photographers like to say, for sunrises and sunsets, we hope for clouds. If you're shooting the night sky, you want the clouds to disappear. You want a nice, clear sky. Now, another consideration is also the moon. So you've got all these things you're trying to put together, and you're in that location, and then you forget to check the calendar and realize it's a full moon. Again, you're not going to get a really good dark sky if the moon is out and full. So you need to check your calendar and keep in mind, when I travel, I like to travel 5 days before or 5 days after the new moon, which is basically just a sliver of light out in the sky. There's an app for that. If I'm really going out to shoot the night sky, one of the apps I use all the time is called PhotoPills. And it is around $10, so it's not free, but it is well worth it. If you're a photographer who's interested in the night sky, you want to look up when the Milky Way is going to be up on a particular day. It can show you on a map where it's going to be. Same with the sun, the moon, all the phases in the night sky that you'd need to know. Again, it's a great app, PhotoPills. I highly recommend getting it. So those are the considerations before I even leave the house. And these are all the things I have to put together on the calendar. The weather, all that kind of thing has to come into play when you're getting ready to shoot the night sky. So enough about the seasons and location. Let's talk about equipment and technique. And to do that, join me in the field. I want to go up to the UP and we'll give you some more instruction up there. Where's the UP? Good question. Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I'll see you there. Greetings. I am going to take you through the step-by-step process on how I photograph the Milky Way. I'll start out by saying there's three important items, considerations, if you will, when you start this process. One might be quite obvious, but let me go through the steps the way I think through my process. The first thing I am in consideration of is the clothing I'm wearing. And what I mean by that is, you know, if it's really cold temperatures, and a lot of times I'm shooting in the winter, I want to dress in, as Shrek would say, layers, like an onion. You want to be able to peel them off. When I'm hiking, maybe for a half a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, I want to be as cool as possible so that I am not sweating. You want that edge of being warm enough where you're not totally uncomfortable, but you don't want to sweat when you're hiking and then you're stopped in an area for 30 minutes. Sometimes if I'm doing a star trail for 3 hours, and then that sweat turns to cold. So that's really an important consideration. Along with the clothing, you can obviously see I've got a headlamp and it's set to red. You don't want to ruin your night vision. You want to be able to see your equipment and do all the manual controls that you need to do, but you don't want that bright light to ruin your night vision. That's really important. Okay, let me take you through the next step, and that's your camera. There are tons of good cameras out there that capture really high quality in dim light. I am a big fan of the Nikon D850. I get really good results, very little noise in the shadows when I'm shooting at night. I really like that camera. I'm sure there's a ton of other ones out there. I haven't tested them all. This is not the point of this video. The really important component after your camera is the lens. Now, I try to use a pretty wide angle lens. I've used a 14mm Rokinon. I believe it's a Korean made lens. It's a 2.8 f-stop, which is really important when you're trying to get as much light gathering as you can. Recently I've purchased an Irix 15mm, not quite as wide, but I switched to that because it actually gathers a little bit more light. The f-stop is 2.4. It's not unreasonable. I think it's around $650. The Rokinon is actually a lot more affordable. If you're doing that first step, I would highly recommend it. It's around $350, I believe. An important part of any wide-angle lens when you're shooting the night sky is you want to test that lens during the daylight on infinity. Every lens has a marker where infinity is. Not every lens is true to that mark, so you want to be able to test that well before you're fumbling around in the dark trying to see if this star is in focus or if this pine tree when I'm shooting the background in here is in focus. So that's a real important consideration. On my Rokinon, what I actually do is I put a little silver line where that mark is for infinity. PhotoBrake. Okay, this is what I mean about my mark of an infinity. This is where infinity is on this particular lens. This is the manufacturer's line for infinity. It's not anywhere close. Every lens is different. You really need to check that out. Once I find that line when I'm out in the field, I actually put some tape over it, gaffer's tape, so it's locked solid. That lens is not going to move. That's another important consideration when you're moving around and you're hiking and you accidentally bump the lens. You don't want to be fumbling back and forth to find where the infinity point is. Generally, I find my infinity point gives me plenty of range to have
pine trees in the background in focus, as well as the Milky Way, the stars. So again, that is the second component. The third component, you need a base. You need a very stable base. I'm a big fan of carbon fiber tripods. They're sturdy, they're pretty lightweight. I use as beefy of one as I can carry as far as the length of how long I'm going to go hiking for. I have tried a variety of tripods. If you've got the money, you want to spend it, get a Gitzo. You won't find a better tripod out there. I'm a big fan of Enduro. They're a Chinese made, not that I'm usually a fan of much that's Chinese made, but I have found these tripods to be very reliable. They're about half the cost of Enduro. Another component that I really like in my tripod is I have what's called a half bowl. And what that allows me is if I'm in uneven ground and I can't extend my legs out any further to level it, then you can release this mechanism and you can find the center with that half bowl. It's not as important when you're just shooting stills unless you're going to stitch an image together and you want a nice horizon line that's level. But if you want a horizon line that's level, you know, you get a half bowl and you're going to be very happy that you did and spend a little extra money to do that. Yeah, anyway, those are the basic components of the equipment. Now let's talk about the technique. Again, when I'm out in the field, I'm looking, you know, I usually can find the Milky Way quite easily. I set up my shot. The components that I use as far as my f-stop is I'm shooting pretty much wide open, 2.8, 2.4. My ISO is typically, I'm going to start at 1600 and see what that looks like. If it's just a little too dark, then I'll switch to 3200. I know I get a good result at 3200. I don't like to go much higher than that. You can go more in time than 30 seconds, but depending on your lens, there's a factor where the stars will start to move. So the wider it is, the 14 millimeters, the 15 millimeters, I'm able to get away with 30 seconds and the stars don't really seem to be moving. Again, ISO 1600, start with 2.8. Another important factor to me, which I think most people are aware of, is I shoot RAW. I also shoot JPEG. Some of you out there, I belong to the Cape Fear Camera Club. Jay, I'm talking to you. He shoots JPEG all the time. I get great results with JPEG, and Jay will say the same thing. I like the advantage of having both, because if there's something I really need to manipulate, post-process in Photoshop, that RAW is really going to come in favor for you. So again, shoot JPEG, shoot RAW at the same time. I also set my white balance manually. I do that during the day. If it's during the day, I'm going to be at Kelvin 5800. At night, I tend to want it a little bluer sky, so I drop it down to 3800, I think 3850, something like that. So that's my starting process. Obviously when I'm shooting, I'm not going to be using my red light, except sometimes I like that effect where I'll light up the foreground with my red light, and I get some really interesting results using that. Or you can, you know, use a regular flashlight. You can paint with light. That's another process to mix it up, not just have the traditional silhouette of black with the sky behind. So let's start out and see what this looks like. All right, nailed it. And honestly, the light I'm using here to film me, I'm going to use as the trees. Check this out and see what you think.
Hey, you're still here. Thanks for sticking around. If you'd enjoy that at all, please give a thumbs up, leave me a question or comment below, and do subscribe. It really does help the channel grow. Till the next time, this is Curtis from PhotoBrake.